I feel like I failed. I feel like I didn't do more.
Pressure or the perfectionism of, first of all, golf, you won 4 times.
Very poor decision making. The whole thing just spiraled fast. Through my work now, how can I serve other people?
Welcome to the Alex Perry on Fire podcast. I'm humbled by today's guest. At one point, he was a top golfer, PGA Tour golfer in the world with multiple wins. He is a commentator for the Golf Channel and NBC. But more importantly, I've gained a friend from meeting him, but I've also recognized what a pillar you are for the community. And also, when I say community, the Native American community and the golf community. But what I'm really interested in is that through following you in your story, the weight and the responsibility that you've handled throughout your life and the resilience through many different things. So, Notah Begay III, I'm excited to have you on and to hear about your journey.
Oh, it's wonderful to be with you, Alex. It's been a while. We met some 20 plus years ago, it seems, and you've had tremendous success in your industry, and I applaud you for that. And you've always stayed in touch, and we've always stayed connected through our golf pools and through just seeing me on TV and you shooting me a text. And so it's great to be here with you. And, you know, all the things you said are very kind, and I appreciate that. And you know, it boils down to one particular story for me with regard to sort of the unasked for responsibility that I think some athletes get just because of their background or the fact that they're one of none that have sort of gone into different spaces or have had different endeavors that have made an impact within their community. And for me, the Native American community, I'm half Navajo, 1/4 San Felipe, 1/4 Isleta Pueblo. They're all New Mexico, Southwestern tribes. And it's always been, I shouldn't say always. There was a moment when I realized that things were going to be a little bit different for me. And it was my senior year in high school. So I'd had a great high school career. I was winning a lot of golf tournaments. I was on a state championship basketball team at Albuquerque Academy. And it was early spring of my senior year, and I get a letter from a high school on the Navajo Nation, graduating class, 15 students. Tohajali Navajo community is about 30 minutes west on I-40 outside Albuquerque. And the request was for me to be their commencement speaker. I was baffled. Number one, I was primarily concerned with my own graduation. I was primarily concerned with getting ready to go to Stanford, where I'd earned a golf scholarship. But at the age of 17, you don't understand sort of the requests of a commencement speaker. And now being 53 years old, having 3 kids of my own, having done a couple more commencement speeches and watching who gets asked at different universities or high schools to do commencements, it's people that have sort of had a lot of experience, have had success in certain areas, and that particular community feels like would add value to the entire event or the experience. And I didn't feel like I did that. Like, I didn't even know. I'm just like, why would these 17-year-old kids, the same age as me, ask me to be their commencement speaker? So I did. I did. I hardly even remember what I talked about because I felt like it was strange to be talking to kids my age about what is in their future when the realities are vastly different than mine. The educational standards in their high school were much lower than mine. None of them were going to a school of Stanford's caliber. Even I think less than half of them had even applied to college. So I didn't even know what I was supposed to say or how I was supposed to act. and I did the best I could. And I don't even know if it was any good. But I just talked about what I was looking forward to and how I was going to approach the next segment of my life. And then driving home, um, I realized things were going to be different for me. That was going to be sort of a responsibility. Um, and in my mind, I've always tried to, whenever I can, was define it as an opportunity and not try and make the burden a little worse and make the pressure worse, but just saying, look, whenever and wherever I can, choose to make a difference in a positive fashion with whatever community. And a lot of my work is within the Indian country, but I also invest time in other nonprofit work, other communities unrelated to directly to, Indian groups. So that was it. That was when I realized my life's going to have a different feel to it. And there was always going to be, no matter where I went or what I did, there was always going to be sort of that footnote that this is the representative or one of the primary representatives of Native American people.
Yeah, and I imagine unless you were Native American or Indian, you wouldn't know what that was like. No one could, relate to that. And I know it's documented that you were roommates with Tiger Woods at Stanford. Was that did you have the ability to relate a little bit because he was an African American in obviously the golf community? You were a Native American. Did that strengthen the bond, or was it just? Do you think that was random? I mean, do you think, or kind of life put you guys together and that because it's a little bit of your journey, but not your journey, right? But that's kind of odd that both of you were put in that place in Stanford. And
Yeah, I think that's part of what tied us together initially. I mean, neither did he realize the impact he was going to have as a global superstar. And I made my own much smaller impact in the world of golf. Very successful, very accomplished, but just, my 4 wins compared to his 82 now seems very small when you look at it from that standpoint. But it was more in the sense that in a game where there wasn't a lot of minority players, that's sort of what pulled us together, right? Because the 1995 Walker Cup team, it's the USGA team that selects the 10 best amateurs in America over a 2-year period, similar to the Ryder Cup. But there's no points. It's kind of done based upon they use a variety of different elements to decide who are those 10 best players. And when we went to Wales to compete against Great Britain and Ireland, Tiger was the first African American to ever represent the United States on that team, and I was the first Native American. So it started well before we turned pro, where we were sort of both achieving things that sort of had never really been achieved in the golf space. And we never really talked about it that much, but it was always kind of an understanding between us. And that's why we've always stayed so close. And that's kind of how we've always supported each other, both on the course and off the course. I mean, he's had a lot of off the course challenges. I've had my own off the course challenges. And it was always important to me to know that he had a friend that was concerned with his well-being as a person, not as an athlete.
yeah, and that's kind of where I'd want to go is like the off-course challenges, because you said you saw it as an opportunity. But that doesn't mean it's always an opportunity in your best interest, right? I would imagine the pressure. I go back to the pressure or the perfectionism of, first of all, golf. You said it, you won 4 times. And you probably, how many tournaments did you play?
Yeah, quite a few.
Right. And even top 10 is a feat. But people don't always see it that way. Not winning is losing sometimes in golf for people who don't avidly follow golf. So, I mean, again, kind of off course, did you feel, I mean, is there almost that you had to live to a level of perfectionism that wasn't attainable? And is that where challenge comes in?
Not so much. I mean, for myself, the pressure of being a Native American in a sport where there's no one else sort of that comes from that background never really was a pressure because it was more like a constant. it just was there. There was nothing I could do about it. I couldn't change where I came from. I couldn't change who I was. So I let everybody else kind of focus on those things because it was always picked up by the media. It was always focused upon with sports information groups from different colleges because it was something to talk about. It was something different. But for me, it was just my reality, and I I couldn't afford to be distracted by stuff like that because I didn't have a lot of support that some of the other athletes had, financial, technical, a lot of the things that maybe a lot of other athletes had from other schools. So I really had to put every single ounce of effort I could into performing. And thankfully, I was able to block out some of those distractions because um, early on in my high school career, I started I would put red clay under my eyes before I'd play. And a lot of athletes do that from the southwestern pueblos. It's clay that's harvested from different parts of the mesas, similar to potting clay. It just has a really dark color to it. It's called chi. And a lot I would go, my father would take me to the state high school cross country meet every year since I was in 5th grade, and we'd go and we'd cheer for all the native teams that made it to state, and a lot of them were wearing this red clay, and I asked what it was, and my dad told me the story of where it comes from and what it means. And it was to signify that they were the runners, the men and the women were were in a spiritual journey, and that they wanted to put whatever best effort forward that they could that came from their heart and their soul. It wasn't just an athletic contest for them. It was about their spirituality, and how it related to the difficulty of the endeavor. Pushing your body to max capacity is a hard thing. And so I started doing that in golf tournaments, and quickly got picked up by the media as war paint. It wasn't war paint, but that's the stereotype sort of that people like to sort of grab onto because it's different, right? And I can't tell you, I've had so many stories written about it. And no matter how many times I told journalists and writers that it wasn't war paint, that it was just my sort of acknowledgement of the difficulty of this journey that I'm about to go on, that's going to last 4 to 5 hours and is going to test every ounce of your physical, mental, and emotional skill. So I was just realizing that in many cases that those sorts of things you can't do on your own, right? You need to have whatever sort of outside higher power influence that people subscribe to. Then, that was just an acknowledgement that I wasn't bigger than the sport. I wasn't bigger than what I was trying to do. And so even when I went and played a couple years in Europe, I was referenced as the Red Indian, and it was war paint, and it was just kind of kept getting picked up. And so I stopped doing it early in my pro career. I just, again, and maybe this is one of the aspects of this whole sort of relationship with where you're from and having a burden or pressure, but I didn't want to perpetuate a stereotype. And I felt like it was doing that. I felt like as sort of the mascot issue was starting to evolve and Native Americans were starting to voice their concerns over representation and different key issues that I felt like were important at the time, I just had to make sure that I wasn't working against them, right? I've never classified myself as an activist. I've always been an advocate of positive change. I think sometimes activism sort of gravitates more towards a zero-sum game. And I've never really believed that in order for me to do well, Alex, you've got to lose. I've always thought, why can't both of us do well? Why can't we all do well, right? And I think that in the modern political game that we could use a lot more of that, because I think that, not to pivot into that, because that would be a whole nother podcast, is that politics has become much more of a zero-sum game. And
But as a young golfer, right, just wanting to play golf and put something under your eye and just be,
pray,
right?
essentially, right?
Yeah,
Like,
and it's funny you say pray. How many times does someone win a golf tournament and said like to give all
yeah,
the glory to
thing,
God or Jesus my Lord and
right,
Savior? No one wrote an article on that,
right.
right? No one, it doesn't make news, right? And yet you still have this in the back of your head, right? Well, this is not what I'm trying, this is not my message. It's just something I wanted to do for myself.
Just, yeah, to honor my heritage. And I just think that's kind of where a lot of the double standards evolve. It's like, I think that I support and encourage people to have faith and spirituality and believe in whatever it is they choose to believe in. And I think it's very healthy. But because a certain group or a certain person believes in something doesn't mean that everything else is wrong. I think that there's a lot of instances in life where you realize there's more than one way to do things right. And it's not necessarily this way or that way, but maybe it might be something in between. And so I've always really just made it a point to be a connector, if I could, through my work, through my performances and whatnot, and always just sort of adhere sort of to a higher standard of conduct, just because I know that every tournament I played in, and I wasn't always the best. I've broken clubs on the tour, and I've had some tantrums of my own, and wasn't always the best representative of myself. But every time I stepped on the golf course on the PGA Tour, or I go on camera for NBC Sports, like, my community gets judged by my actions, because there's none of us. Like, in broadcast television at the network level, there are no other Native Americans, whether you look on the news channels, the news stations, talk shows, anything. And, in terms of and even in sports broadcasting. And so, two things I'm trying to do is, number one, I'm trying to get really good at what I do, because it's a very competitive industry. But the second thing is that I need to continue to represent my community in the best fashion possible. So everything from how my hair is cut to the clothes I wear, it's a very conscious process for me, because I don't want somebody going up there saying, wow, that guy really is not very put together. I guess that's what all Native Americans are like. I've actually heard people watching a show that has aired later, and I was in a restaurant, actually physically heard somebody go, wow, that Notah Begay, like, he speaks well. Like, I didn't think that they could speak that well. And so I'm like, great, that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm trying to do. And so, but like I said, I've never, when at all possible, I've never tried to classify it as pressure, but as opportunity.
But as someone sitting in this chair, I see that as immense pressure, like immense pressure. And from the life I've lived, which is not being on TV and having to hit, 200-yard shots into, island greens and stuff, I see it differently, because you're a human, right? And so as a human, you're not going to have your best face on every day. Your father, things happen. As a husband, life happens, right? Some days you don't want to look the part. Some days you just want to be yourself. And so I would sit here and say, like, damn, that feels difficult. Damn, that feels like a hard job to hold that. So you may not consciously think that is pressure, but from the outside world, at least from my position, I'd be like, where's the break, right? Like, where's the break? Because everyone is looking to you, and you just said there's not a lot of other people. So
Right.
I'm the model, and the model is still human, right?
And you're right. There is pressure, and there are no breaks, and there are no rewards. Like, when the pressure does mount and things get hard, there's no relief, because there isn't anybody that can do this job for me or live this life for me, right? It's just kind of my path. But I also look to a lot of, we still have a very strong um, cultural setup in my Pueblo community of San Felipe, where we have spiritual healers that dedicate their entire lives to providing spiritual support, similar to pastors and priests and whatnot. That it's their whole life that they dedicate to just maintaining the spiritual and sort of beliefs of the community, and that's a lifelong endeavor. And I think that I look at it like that to a certain degree. Like, look, this is just my path. And I've chosen to walk this path. I've been very blessed with a lot of opportunity, a lot of wonderful things in my life. But yeah, it does mount up. I mean, there were times like I told you, like I was 17, I knew my life was going to be different. And that was in 1990. 10 years later, I get arrested for DUI. And instead of me trying through eliminating the clay under my eyes to not perpetuate a stereotype, I fell right into the stereotype of the drunk Indian on January 19th of 2000. And that was one of the sort of scariest moments because, again, I was a 26-year-old kid that was making more money on the PGA Tour than I ever thought a person should ever be able to make. A millionaire at that age, coming from where I'd come from, and I just, made very poor decision making. But the whole thing just spiraled so fast. And this wasn't even in the era of social media. I don't even know what I would have done if it was in the era of social media. I might not have ever continued playing golf, to be quite honest, because it was hard at that point with no social media. But it was a big story. I mean, it was a really big story because of the Tiger ties, because of Stanford connections, because of my early success on the PGA Tour. I was one of only two rookies, I think, in the last 20 or 30 years on the tour to win twice in their first year. And so I was setting some pretty impressive performance marks, but this just comes to a screeching halt with with a poor decision, trying to drive, getting arrested on TV, having to go to jail. But I think the hardest part about all this from day one of what we talked about when I was 17, sitting in that small community center to give that commencement speech to those other students, is that there's no map. There's no map. I mean, and my parents weren't equipped. I had nobody in my family that was equipped. So I just was constantly having to make decisions that were way out of my league, in terms of how my career was going and what I was going to do with it. And then this happens. And even to the point where my parents didn't even know they supported me, right? They were there for me, but it's like there wasn't any strategy or really good advice that was coming from their end. Because in them, I was just, and to my community, I was a hero. But I had really fallen on a very difficult time at that period early in my career, and it really could have been a downfall. And I guess the one thing that saved me was that I've had this part of me that's wanted to do the right thing, wanted to make the right choices, wanted to have a good example. And we had a big legal team because I could afford it. We had attorneys that had worked on the prosecution side. It was an election year for that particular prosecutor. So there was a lot, right? This was the biggest case. And I mean, it was on Sports Center. It was on every major sports network that you would see now as one of the lead stories. And so it was a big deal in New Mexico. So in talking to these attorneys, and everybody, you know, goes around the table, talking about, well, this is how we can do to get, there's this loophole and there's this possibility of getting you off and getting you, getting the charges lifted and this and that and the other. And I had heard 5 or 6 different opinions as it went around the table in the boardroom there. And it came to me, and I just said, look, it's like, and I don't know why I did this, because it doesn't make a lot of sense. To me, it did. But I said, I'm going to plead guilty, period. And it like shocked everybody, because I just had seen within the last year, 18 months, a couple athletes that had tried to get off, and they got off on a technicality. The police officer didn't do this, or something happened. And I just felt like that it didn't have a good feel to it. And I just felt like, look, there's nothing wrong with making a bad choice as long as you own up to it. And the thing that shocked them is that I said, and nobody in the room knew, because I was living in Phoenix a few years earlier, and I had a DUI in Phoenix. So I go, look, I'm going to plead guilty. I'm going to admit my prior, because the databases weren't consolidated yet. So the people in New Mexico didn't even know I had a DUI in Arizona when I was living there right after college. And they're like, what? Like, everybody was shocked, because what the prior meant was that the sentence was going to, it made the sentence way worse. And I said, yeah, that's what we're going to do. And my justification was, and I didn't know it at the time, of like what the implications were down the road, was that, look, I'm going to let everybody hit me hard one time. You can write what you want. You can say what you want. You can disparage. You can applaud. I don't care what you do. Just, I need to own up to what this is, and I need to make some serious changes in my life, right? Did it, spent 2 weeks in jail. I mean, at Bernalillo County Detention Center, orange jumpsuit, shackled at the ankles, handcuffs, like going in and out. They allowed me to, they kind of put me in a section. There was about 20 cells in this one section, and for some reason there wasn't anyone in there. And I don't think they cleared it out because of me, but there was. So I was in there by myself, because they knew that if something happened to me in there, that it was going to be an even worse story, right? And I said, it's real, but I did my time, right?
Yeah.
And so I'll fast forward in a couple instances. PGA Tour was great, supportive. All my sponsors stayed with me. As soon as I got back out on the tour a month later, all the players were very supportive, and even the ones that were sort of older, that already had kids and knew kind of the challenges that their kids can face, were very appreciative for how I took responsibility for all that. Now you fast forward, 30 years, and one of my business partners, a guy named Ryan Burr, he's a Golf Channel, ESPN broadcaster, had a daughter in journalism school in Florida. And she's driving home one day. She calls her dad. She says, Dad, she goes, did you know there's a chapter in crisis management on Notah in our journalism book? And I had heard, I'd never checked or seen it. And she goes, we spent an entire lecture talking about how that was perfectly managed, how he turned a very bad situation, very PR negative, into a positive, because he just took it all on and took the responsibility. And and made some hard choices at that time, not knowing what was on the other side, right? And she was just like, I had no idea. She didn't even know about the whole incident or anything. She was just 20 years old, but it was cool because I've come to find out that it has made its way into a number of textbooks that is taught at different schools in journalism. Just kind of about how to deal with crisis in sort of a very straightforward fashion. Still didn't feel good to me, looking back on it, but so it started a number of things. I quit drinking for a period of time. And that felt great. And it lasted, gosh, maybe 6 years, 6 or 7 years. And I didn't have any issues. And then just one day I was with my wife in Spain, and we were at the seaside little bar on the shore there. And it's like, oh, maybe I'll just have a beer. And then kind of started the cycle down, and it was just not the best place for me to be again. Never had any other arrests or anything like that. It just, it wasn't a good place for me to be. And so in 2010, the alcohol was causing marital problems. It was just causing me not to be, I think, the type of person that I wanted to be. And so then I went to treatment at 2 different times. Great place, the Meadows. Just can't say enough good things about them, their staff, how they approach these things, and how much they understand that whole addiction around a variety of things. I mean, they address everything at these facilities. And May 10th of 2010. So I'm coming up on 16 years. A lot of meetings. A lot of people coming out of the woodwork talking about their own recoveries. But what recovery does is, as you get deeper and deeper into it, right? So you talk about the serenity prayer, right? God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Like, you say that to yourself every day, and it just kind of gives you, it equips you with a sense of hope that today I can live the way that I want to live. And that's different for each person. But what addiction does, what counseling does, I'm constantly, whether it's personal counseling or marital counseling, I'm always in some sort of sitting on a couch with somebody, because it's healthy to talk about it. Like, even talking to you about it in this context is very healthy for me, because each time I learn something new, but it also keeps you grounded, right? And I think that's the hardest thing about, and I don't classify myself as a celebrity, but I watched Tiger, and I watched other celebrities that I've become friends with through golf. And celebrity and fame and wealth are very difficult things to live with. I mean, from the outside looking in, that's where we all want to be. God, I want to be rich. I want to have this car. I want to have that watch. I want to go to these places. And in many cases, it's kind of just this, it becomes this perpetual downward cycle of it's never enough, right? And what I try to equip my kids with now through my own experience is saying, hey, look, everybody's going through something. I don't care what it looks like on the outside. They might have a nice house, a nice car, a great job, but every single person you encounter, whether they're checking you out at the grocery store or they're putting, they're changing your oil at Jiffy Lube, like, everybody's going through something. So whenever and wherever you can, give them some grace, right? And I think that has kind of been my mindset these last couple years as a 53-year-old dad of a 17-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 9-year-old, and somebody that has sort of had to deal, has needed grace from people in my own life.
Wow, I'm emotional from hearing it because I agree with you. Like, everyone is going through something, right? Everyone. And you don't even know what layer it is, right? Like, someone can say, yeah, I'm struggling a little bit, but that might be the tip of what they're comfortable telling you. You know, it can go so much deeper.
Well, even though you and me sitting here before we hit record, just talking about the whole exchange that people have, like, how are you? Oh, I'm great. How are you? Oh, I'm great. Meanwhile, my life sucks, right? My wife's mad at me. My kids don't like me anymore. I just got furloughed, right? Like, it's there's always something there. And that's why I think connection amongst people, which has become very difficult in this day and age, true connection and sort of getting to understand somebody from a variety of different angles is so valuable, because then you can have realistic exchanges with your friends, like your friends that tell you, well, no, things aren't going that great right now. I have a great friend, one of my best friends. We both arrived at Stanford together, and we helped turn the program around prior to us getting there. A lot of people think Tiger turned the program around, but no, he was right. He was a few years after us. But Casey Martin and myself was the first time the program had ever gotten 2 recruits that were ranked inside the top 10. They hadn't made the NCAA championships in 17 years. We made it that first year we got there. So we sort of got things moving in the right direction. We set it up for Tiger to come in and kind of put it at the top of golf. But Casey had a circulatory disorder in his right leg, which caused a severe limp, a lot of pains. It was a birth defect. So he was the guy that sued the PGA Tour for the right to use a cart in competition. Got to argue his case in the Supreme Court, got to sit in the Supreme Court on behalf of many, many Americans out there that have physical challenges or are classified maybe as disabled at that particular time. I know that's not the word that's used now. And he won. And I was with my daughter, Antonella, on not a recruiting visit, but we went to see University of Oregon, and he took us on a tour, and we sat there, we had a moment, and I was like, how are you? He goes, I'm not great. And I love that, because it's honest, right? Because he just lost his leg. They had to remove his leg like 2 years ago, around 2 years ago. And they can't find the stump that was left, right? He was lucky they could do it at the thigh. So there's, I guess, and I'm not an expert, so nobody write in and correct me. But it's better that way, because they could find a prosthetic that it could slide in, his right leg could slide into better. And apparently the first year is extremely, extremely painful, because the skin in where the connection is has to callus. It has to get hard, and it's extremely painful. And they've had trouble fitting his leg. So he's in a lot of pain every day still. It was just, it was kind of interesting, because my daughter was sitting in the back, and I go, well, how is everything? He goes, well, I'm bald, I'm fat. He had his reader. I can't read, and I have one leg. And so we both kind of chuckled to each other, because and my daughter's in the back, and her eyes are as big as saucers, going, what are you guys doing up there, right? Because that's just the type of friend he is, and we can always be honest with each other. And I think that those are the best relationships that you can have.
Well, yeah, in reference to before we went on air, you asked how I was doing, and you asked how my twin brother was doing, and I didn't want to give you the proverbial answer of good. No. The reason I started this podcast is because not everything was good.
Right.
And I thought, it's kind of like you said, when you connect with people and you're real, there's different energy. There's a different level of vulnerability, of comfortability, of me too. Nothing is perfect. Right. And hearing you say that story, it's like, it makes me feel that when you can relate, that is you being human, right? That's you not having to be on camera and say, look how perfect my wardrobe is and my hair is, and, you know, uh, label the perfect family and the perfect, history of life. No, I would imagine the DWI or DUI at 26 changed your life as a traumatic event that you still probably hold in some shape or form. I looked at Wikipedia when I first met you, and it brings up that. I'm pretty sure it doesn't bring it up for other people and other athletes who have been in trouble. Right. And it can follow you, right? And then where's the release? And I guess the question from that is like, because you said it at 26, your parents didn't know it. It's like, who kind of took care of you? Or was that the struggle too?
That
It's
was
like,
the struggle. There wasn't. I think that the hardest people to get sober are the ones with money and power, because the angles of influence that you have to get them back on the right path are very few. And so I had money, and I had influence in my family. There wasn't really anyone that could direct me into the right things, but thankfully, right, through somebody's grace, I had it within myself to understand that this just wasn't working out for me the way things are. And whether it was just my general understanding of life or maybe taking some elements of my sport, if I'm taking the club back a certain way and I'm hitting a lot of bad shots, I need to change it, right? And I'm not trying to oversimplify addiction, because you shouldn't, because a lot of people struggle with it every day. Depression is just running rampant now, right, amongst mankind. And I felt like it was some sort of combination of my life's experience, kind of how I'm wired, but also my sport being like, wow, if you're doing it one way and you're getting this result, that's not ideal. Let's try something else. And that was my something else, was just cleaning up my life.
yeah. And I might argue, just in terms of addiction, although alcohol and drugs are different, you can be addicted to work, you can be addicted to control, right? And money and all this stuff can allow you to control your life better. And there's so many different forms of
Oh my
addiction.
gosh, yes.
And I think that goes into what you just said, where you're seeing so much more depression or people struggling because there's all these new avenues. You brought it up. There wasn't social media back then. Now there is. People are addicted to scrolling. They're addicted, whatever it may be. And you said it. And I believe in spirituality, and there's a purpose and there's a reason you're in the chair across from me at this particular time. And I believe in it all. But like what you said about connection is what I keep saying. I feel like we are intended to connect. And the further we get from connecting to people, the harder our lives get. And we lose this ability to, I don't want to say be vulnerable, but just be. And I'm seeing it so much in my everyday life. And I'm seeing so many people come to me and say, like, they're like, something's knocking. Like, what's the purpose? What's the reason for all this? My mind has gone into like service. Like, yeah, it's great to sell a lot of real estate. It's great to make money and have nice vacations and cars and watches and all that. But it got to a point where it's like, I feel like I need to be a better service, And I think that kind of leads into, I think, a little bit of the MB3 and your foundation. Did you get to a point um, where you were like, what's the point of this? Even though you'd won 4 tournaments, you know, um, or what got you to say,
Well, the
it could
hardest
have been
part.
enough to win golf tournaments and be the face of golf for the Indian community. But obviously you've done way more than that.
Yeah, I think that the hardest part about, well, look at my career in 2 phases. There was the pre-injury phase, the DUI arrest was more of a speed bump, but the injury that I sustained after my second year was like, that was crushing. Because in a 2-year span, I had won 4 tournaments in basically 10 months, which the only person that had won more in that period of time was Tiger Woods at the time. 2000 was the greatest year of golf ever played by a human in the history of our sport, where Tiger wins 3 majors. And in a 12-month period, actually less than that, in about a 10-month period, wins all 4 majors in a row, the Tiger Slam. So that was a high point for me. It was a high point for the sport. And then at the end of the 2000 season, I get hurt. And it just caused this downward spiral, which is, I think, a lot of what caused me to go back to drinking. But it also forced, not so much forced me, but I didn't know what else to do. Like, I think one thing that people overlook is, or just don't really pay attention to, is like, we see the Tigers and the Jordans and the LeBron Jameses and all these wonderful athletes, and not just them, but sort of the tier below them, right? That have great careers, make a ton of money, and do a lot of really fun things. But what we don't see are the ones that don't make it, right? Because they took that risk too. And what I mean by the risk is that when an athlete chooses to go professional in a sport, and let's say they leave college a year or two early with no degree, or let's just say they even leave with the degree, they do their 4 years, get their degree in whatever, they're still falling behind their peers in the workspace. So if you just look at your own career in real estate, like, how I've known you for so long, and you've really hit your stride in the last decade, but there was a whole decade before that where you're paying your dues, right? And athletes that go for it in pro sports and don't make it, they don't have any work experience. They don't have a real estate license. They don't have a investment license. They got to start from zero at the age of whatever time they quit, whether it's 30, 32, 33, 28, where all of their peers have 6 or 7 years of work experience and have moved up to elevated positions within wherever it is they're working. And so looking at it in that context, there's just a lot of athletes that come out and they're just like, they've got nothing. And they either have to have a great personality or have made some great connections through their college networks or through their sport that they played to parlay that into something. And I just always felt like that was something that I didn't want to have happen to me. And so I finished my degree. I got my degree from Stanford. And then when things started to fall apart for me on the golf course, I kind of knew that something had to change. But that secondary period after my injury and I couldn't play the way I wanted to play, I hated myself. I absolutely, I shaved my head. All these signs of depression and whatever textbook cases you want to look at. It was me. Started drinking again. Just not making a lot of good choices and was playing terrible golf. Good enough to stay relevant. I mean, I could still keep my card on the tour, which some people would say, wow, that's pretty amazing. But like when you go to being a top 20 player in the world and then you're just sort of trying to keep your playing status, it's a big, big difference. And so I kind of fell down the ladder there and just kind of went into some pretty dark places. And then that's what sort of spawned the recovery, the new path, the sort of the redirection of my life. And then it also became a dad. I got a new career as a broadcaster, but I stayed committed to my recovery so that I could stay sober, but also it just taught me to have compassion. because compassion is not a skill that is too valuable in sports. You know, we all talk about the killer instinct, go out there and crush them, and it's about winning and this and that, and it is at the highest level. It's a lot of pressure. But my ability to connect now and have compassion and try and understand what people are dealing with on a daily basis has helped me in the work that I started at the MB3 Foundation, which is kind of where we're looking to impact lives in a lot of different communities.
MB3 is such a major part of your life and what you're serving and giving back. Just how did that start?
I've always felt like I've needed to pour my time into productive things. And so back around 2004, I started writing some ideas in a notepad of just kind of what I would want a foundation to look like. And in the conversations I've had with some very influential people around the world, sort of the Condi Rices, the Jerry Yangs who founded Yahoo, the George Roberts of the world, who are just titans in finance. One of the things that they always mentioned to me when it came to nonprofit was it has to reflect who you are in order to maintain the purpose-driven work that you're trying to accomplish. So I said, you know, what reflects me as like sports, right? And community outreach. How can I couple the two? So the community issue that we tried to solve initially was the high incidence of type 2 diabetes amongst Native American youth. It's the highest in America. And it's one of the only, it's the only chronic illness among cancer, heart disease, those things that's we know the cure for. It's preventable. Like some of the other stuff is genetic or you're just, unlucky in some cases. And so then that's how it started. It's like I coupled activities related to sports with a more wellness driven approach. And we're just trying to get kids. We know that we're not big enough to sort of push back type 2 diabetes, but we're trying to create a generation of kids that are aware of the benefits of wellness, that are proud of their Native American heritage. We make culture a big part of the programming in the sense of be proud of who you are, be proud of where you're from, be proud to speak your native languages. Those are strengths. They're not weaknesses. And 20 years later, we've poured, I think, over almost $15 million into the communities. And I think we've served, close to 100,000 kids.
Do you still struggle with, am I enough?
Oh, yeah.
And the compassion for that, because like, it's the idea that it's not just compassion in the workspace, right? It's compassion for yourself. All these accolades, and I see it, I'm seeing it over again. I see it with my brothers, with myself, which is, are you enough?
Yeah, those are, and people, I think I've had to make some pretty convincing arguments to myself that I am enough. And, I'm going through a little bit of that right now, to be quite honest, is, I started to try and play on the Champions Tour again, with some I'm seeing signs of improvement, but it's like, it's such a big commitment to play at that level because so many of the guys on the Champions Tour are so good. They're so committed. They work so hard. But I don't want to leave television. And I was out on the practice range at Dallas National yesterday, and I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, am I a golfer? Am I a broadcaster? Am I a philanthropist? Am I an entrepreneur? Like, those are all and I know I'm a dad and a husband. Though that's the most important. But like, where do these other 4 things fit into my life? Because I'm kind of okay at all of them, but I'm not really good at any single one of them. So I'm having to sort of reorganize some thoughts because I like to wake up feeling like I have a sense of purpose. And right now it's been pretty hard because I'm so distracted with so many things. And I'm having trouble focusing on the moment because I'm always in a rush to get to the next moment. to the next event, to the next thing. And it's going to take probably a lot of talking, but also some pretty deep kind of introspection as to sort of what's this next 10 years going to look like for me.
I can sit here and tell you the exact same thing for myself. The exact same thing for myself. Again, it could make me emotional because got things going here, things going here. I'm kind of good at this. This provided me a great income. Don't want to give that up. And it's purpose, right? I mean, it's like, what am I doing each day that fills me up? It can be kind of confusing because at one point that filled you up to the 9, right? Like, I can feel that on you. And I also mirror that, like literally mirror that. And it's the idea of being present, right? I was just on the phone with a friend who had blood clots, and it forced him to be in bed for a while. And he's like, I am being forced into present day. And I said to him, literally, my work today is not looking back in the past and saying, well, look what I was doing a year ago and how I felt a year ago, versus where am I going? Like you said, what can I do? What can I give back? What business can I start? Or where can I do this? And it's like, I got to bring it back to right here. And if I don't, I'm not even present for this and the beauty of things like this, because you just said it. You have to be present. Like, you have to be. Otherwise, you get nothing, right? It's these conversations force you into the present. But I agree. It's a lot of, we had a guy who had ALS on here, an actor, Aaron Lazar, and it's like your soul calling. Like, what is pulling you? What is telling you to go here? What doesn't feel right? And I think that's hard for people who move super fast and want, quick reactions and oh, this worked, right? You do this, oh, this worked. Or you get back on the Champions Tour and you're like, well, I knew it would take some time, but I started improving and I started getting better, or whatever it may be. But I feel that so much. Literally a mirror for you, literally. And the tough thing is it wears on you, and you kind of hold it and you're like, well, was that the person I want to be? That's not, I'm known as this high energy go guy, but I don't feel into that right now, right? I feel into this kind of slow, more pensive, where do I want to go kind of person.
Yeah, those sorts of things are case by case. And I think that the hardest thing for an individual to deal with is just kind of where society's at now. We're in this period of instant quick gratification, instant quick results. Like, as soon as Ozempic became available, like I knew that it was just going to go through the roof because nobody wants to put the work in, right? Like, I think it's interesting that we want peace of mind, we want solitude to a certain degree, some quiet in our lives, but it takes work, right? You have to get rid of the garbage. Like, what's really not benefiting me mentally, emotionally, physically, and make those changes. And I almost look at it as almost like a daily checklist, right? Like, I try and pray every day. In some ways, I need to go to church. I don't need to go to church every day. I just take a moment. I try and do yoga every day, right? And I have a 20-minute flow that I've been doing for 20 plus years now. And those last 3 breaths I take at the end of my flow, those are mine. And I really enjoy them. Like, and it sounds kind of silly, but like, it's just kind of, okay, this is how I want to be the rest of the day. Never works out like that because I end up running around like a chicken with his head cut off. Looking at my GPS on the phone, trying not to hit the car in front of me. Like, I mean, just all of the things that nobody should do, right? We're all guilty of just trying to get, 10 things done in the amount of time that it should take you to do 5 things. So, I just think that the way that life moves now is very fast and very content filled, and it's up to us to sort of get off the merry-go-round and just kind of, hey, get back on if you want. That's fine. But like, I just think, know what you're getting into. I think there's too much of a mentality that life is happening to me. Like I'm the victim of, right? There's too much of this victim mentality when I think in many cases, and not everybody has the fortune or the ability to reorganize their life. You know, some people have to work 14 hours a day because they have to provide for their families or for themselves. Some people have, you know, single moms might have 4 kids and need to work and doesn't have time to do certain things. Like there's always cases that you're just like, okay, I get that. But for people like us, like there is a pathway to a little bit of calm, and it's our responsibility to find it. And if we don't, it's our fault.
Yeah, 100%. I say that you go 100 miles an hour at everything and there's chaos in there. And then you realize, wait, I want peace. I want to remove anxiety. I want to be present with my wife or my kids or at this sporting event or in this conversation or in the car or whatever it may be, because you got to a point where you're running so many things, like you just said, you're just not present. You put that work in to slow down, and then all of a sudden you feel like you're getting lapped because the world's so fast. And you're like, wait, I wanted to slow down. This is what I wanted. And it messes up your nervous system and nothing feels right. But it goes back to kind of what you said. I had this conversation with a friend of yours, Martin Flores. We were playing golf the other day. Someone who's played golf for 20 years and then had to decide to restart. Like you said, he was a good golfer, but
just not quite good enough. Like, I mean, it's a fine line. Like,
and I asked him, I go, what's the hardest thing, you've done restarting? The reason I was asking for that is so that I knew what the hardest thing I could learn for me restarting the way I felt inside. Not work. For me, I'm the lucky, not that I say I'm the lucky one. My work was the nature of being a great golfer for 20 years. I built up, that's fine. But I had to tell myself, and I think maybe a little bit what you're going through is how do we change how we be inside and calm this? And that's not a 1-year process. It's not a 2-year process. It's kind of like, they say it's like being reborn. And so hopefully it's not a 20-year process, but feeling safe, feeling like you're enough, feeling like you're not carrying the weight of an entire community, and learning to live like that.
And I promise you, every day, Martin, at some point feels some guilt and some regret.
Oh, he told me that.
Because it's just, I feel like I failed. I feel like I didn't do more. I feel like I let people down. And it took a long time for me to just come to the realization that doesn't matter. As long as you put your best foot forward, you put everything that you had into your endeavor, your sport, whether it's golf, soccer, American football, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter, because those elite spots they're hard. And I saw it for a split second, and then it's gone. I'll never get back there again. And I still regret it. And I don't know that it ever goes away, unfortunately. There are moments when I just I still feel like I let a lot of people down, which is kind of silly. But Martin's a great guy, and he's a solid person, and I think he's going to do just fine.
Yeah, and I think the work is to say, like, at the end of the day, because we've been talking about this, being present in and this is the work I'm doing, what I see is like being present in what you do is enough. Having a great conversation, crushing it on NBC for whatever it may be, one day of golf, having dinner with someone. And at night, like you said, and this is what I'm believing, the only person that cares is yourself. At the end of the day, when you go to sleep, how you feel is just on you. And I think when you're not overthinking it, can be beautiful because you're just going and you're being. At some point we start overthinking. What could I have done more? Am I using all the time in the day? Whether it be health, whether it be making money, whether it be giving back. And it's tough. It's tough. And I think again, going back to it, it's become harder because of connection. I think the more you connect, the less you have time for that space, right? So if we did this for 18 hours, I'd probably think we went to sleep and be like, man, that was a hell of a day. We might be emotionally exhausted. But we're like, man, I got a lot. I learned from Notah. I felt comfortable that I'm not the only one going through this. And I found that to be incredibly valuable, like incredibly valuable. Enough where I didn't need to sell real estate today. I got way more out of this than I would have of selling a home. But it's just lost because of so many now distractions that we have in this world.
Well, the connection, I mean, to that point, and I'm certainly not trying to make the majority of this about recovery and whatnot, but that was the whole premise of AA, right? So Bill W. was the founder of AA, and prior to him founding AA, he had gone to a number of different treatments and looked for a variety of different solutions to his drinking problem. And what he came to the understanding was that I just needed to find another drunk. And they connected. And they connected through all of the challenges and how drinking had sort of torn their lives apart. But now they want to sort of connect through this new way of doing things, this new path. If you look at just all of the basic fundamentals of AA, they don't accept any corporate support. The way that the organization is funded nationally is through people that go to meetings. They pass the hat around every meeting. You got $5, $10, $2. If you got $0, that's fine, because there's no charge for anyone to go to these meetings. And what I learned, which was a huge asset even in business and through our nonprofit work, was that it kept them from being political. It kept them from being influenced by someone else's agenda. And so it kept the integrity of the program intact so it could do what it was meant to do, which is connect people and then allow them to figure out what their personal recovery story should look like and then pursue it along the lines of these 12 steps. If you do work the steps and you are sincere and you do want to get better, they will help you. Promise. And, sort of there are little addendums that go along the 12 steps, which are called the promises, right? And one of the promises was, if you commit to a life of recovery, at some point down the road, your life will get better and you'll look back and you won't really know why. And that's my life. Like, I struggle with still certain things now, which are day to day, but I wouldn't change one thing. I wouldn't change my injury. I wouldn't change my arrest, because all of those things made me evaluate myself, and come to a realization of just really how I wanted things to look, and then to pursue that. I always wanted to be a better father, a better husband, a community advocate, and I'm doing all those things. And I'll always be a golfer. It's just kind of in my DNA. I just don't know how committed I can be anymore to golf because I have so many other fun things that are opportunities that I want to pursue.
And it's funny, you lit up when you said that, and I think that's the key, right? Is what are the things that really speak to us, that light us up, that excite us, right? Because so much of it is what society says should excite you. And the truths, the hard truths, the things you just said that you're going to have to talk to yourself about is finding out, no, what's for me? Like, what is for me, not for others? And then making those hard choices?
Hard choices, yes, maybe not always the case. I think the hardest thing about some of the choices is that they're so obvious, right?
I laugh. Yeah.
Right? You know,
It's right in front of you.
they just sit right there.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't want that. Like, it's at this point in my life, like, I like dessert. Like, I like drinking. I like, right, this, and I don't want to give it up. I like work, right? Whatever it is, right? I think sometimes it's just so obvious that you're just like, you just ignore it and you ignore it. And you wonder why things don't change.
That's right.
We have to internally change, which at this stage in our lives is monumentally difficult, right? Because we're so ingrained in thought patterns and the way we see things, the way we evaluate problem solving, all those things. But gosh, the biggest changes I made about understanding, number one, that the life of a professional athlete is selfish. I was self-contained. I was manipulative. I was just completely obsessed with myself. But to a certain degree, that's what makes these athletes great. But if I think the challenge that happens, and I'm speaking from my point of view, because I hate to try and speak on behalf of other athletes, is that when you do transition out of your sport, you got to realize there's another set of rules. And it took me a while to realize that the world didn't revolve around me. Other people have feelings. Other people have needs. Other people have emotional responses that I have to be mindful of. And that opened up to more connection. That opened up to more compassion, which made me better, because it made me a better dad versus my way is the highway kind of parenting versus and it dawned on me, I was signing a parental consent form for one of my kids for a field trip. And on the bottom, it says parent/guardian, where you sign. And that whole guardian thing kind of really hit me. And I started thinking about it. I was like, wow, like I am their guardian. And what does that mean to me? Like, it means you protect your children. It means you support your children. It means that you provide them with the resources to sort of grow, develop, mature, hopefully equip them with the skill sets and the understanding to be kind, to work hard. Just very simple principles that I think will serve them well through life. And then as now they are in high school, boy, hold on tight, because there's always something. Like a day in high school is like a month for you and me, because so much happens.
Yeah.
So much drama, so much this, so much that. And you're just like, whoa, you're like, okay, where are we at today? And it's really trying to reconfigure my own patterns, my own expectations, my own way to engage the world has been a critical part of my growth. And I have to sort of attribute, there's a house you sold us here, and we had somehow, some way, we had a Time magazine. I think Mother Teresa had just passed away, and it was sitting on the kitchen counter, and I started reading about her. And so I'll connect sort of this circle here in a second, is that the journalist asked her at the time, this was sort of maybe 10 years prior, wow, Mother Teresa, you have so much power. You can call the President of the United States, the Prime Minister of Canada, whoever you want, and get a meeting and sit down with them and try and figure out how to sort of do your work. And the journalist said, well, how does it feel to have so much power? And her answer was, I don't have any power. She goes, if I got any power, it's because I serve the orphans of Calcutta, right? My power comes through my service, and then obviously to her God. And so that has always been, from that point on, it took me a few years to kind of understand what that meant. But through my work now, it's always about how can I serve other people? Our team at NBC, the people that get no credit, they're never on camera, stage managers and camera people and lighting and audio and runners, and just always being thankful and trying to at some point do certain things for them, just to acknowledge, right, that I appreciate them. And I try and do that with, if there's people that come every week to cut my grass, there's if you've never done a hard day of manual labor, I think everybody should do a 1 week at least of laying sod or something hard, because you'll have a different appreciation for just how hard some of these people work to keep our grass green and our trees healthy, because it is backbreaking work. I mean, during COVID, I laid new sod in our yard. It was only about a half acre, and I would never do it again. It was the problem was I couldn't call anyone to finish the job, because everybody, I had to actually finish it, and I don't want to see another sod roll again for the rest of my life.
Again, you're just, everything you say is exactly where I'm at, and I think that it speaks my language, and I think that's, I keep saying it, the life mirrors you, and it gives you so much to listen, hear from others. And I mean, I could talk to you for hours, but we give to a charity of choice for every guest. So which charity do you think that?
Well, come on, man. That's an easy question.
MB3
Foundation, celebrating 20 years this year.
Love that.
Alex. We've done some amazing things with our kids. We sort of get the most recognition for our sports programs. We have soccer, tennis, golf, track and field, cross country. We run volleyball camps just throughout the year. But we also produce a tremendous amount of research on behalf of Native communities, and we've actually published some peer-reviewed kind of clinical type of documents just about our observations and the statistics related to the work that we're doing. So we're trying to cover quite a few bases, but my main intent was to be a resource. And we just ran our first big coaches convening this past summer at the Shakopee Madankuran Sioux community in Minneapolis. And we had 70 coaches come in, and we just kind of taught them how to do the things that we do in terms of mobilizing different programs, signing kids up, just all the various things that go into running good, solid youth programs. So we're really proud of what we're doing. So thanks. Incredible. We appreciate it.
We'll donate, and I watch it, and I see all the things you're doing. It's downplayed how much you do.
Yeah, I just want 1% of what you bring in, Alex. That's all. I'm not greedy. I'm not greedy, man.
I love it. It sounds fair. This has been powerful and incredible, and thank you for just being you. I feel like we got the real Notah Begay III today. That's what I felt.
I try to be that every day. Sometimes it's not always the case. There's my wife will tell you, sometimes we have Notah Begay home, we have dad, and sometimes they get MB3. Sometimes they don't want MB3 in the house. Nobody's paying MB3 to be here, she says.
Yeah.
But yes, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Much love too. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Alex Perry on Fire. It means so much to me and the wonderful team that makes this all possible. I'm now passing the flame to you. Please follow, like, and subscribe so you can always stay up to date. Thanks again, and stay fired up.